So what's the Grape Explorer talking about today? So we are on our journey, and if you've been following us, we've been talking about what we call Eastern European wines, and what does that actually mean? If you haven't been following us, so we started out talking about Turkey. One of our last countries was also Armenia. Now we're going to talk about a beautiful area. It's called Ukraine, and my heart goes out to Ukraine. It's a beautiful, beautiful country, and it's got an incredible history, but we actually located here an interesting wine that we wanted to share with everybody. And if we want to point out on the map, you can actually see Ukraine's right here. You can see, of course, we all know what's going on here, and our hearts go out to the Ukrainians in their fight for their independence. But what we want to bring up here is a very interesting history behind this country, because we also have what's called Crimea, and we all know what happened with Crimea here. But this is something that we really wanted to spend time, because this is a wine that actually comes from this area, and it's actually a sweet wine. And there's a lot of history behind wines from this area, as well as being wines that are sweet, because in Crimea, and let's just say I always talk about my past, the present, and the future. And my past was in the 1990s. I was offered at one time wines that were purchased by Sotheby's that was called the Massandra collection. Now, if a lot of people don't know Massandra was the state-owned winery that was located in Crimea. It's still there today. It was actually started back when Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, was looking to do wines and of interest, try to emulate everything that Europe and especially France is, because he had a beautiful affection towards French wine. But you could not grow it, because if you look here, you look at Russia, and if you look at also Ukraine, this is too cold for grape production here. So, historically, there was no grapes growing here in this area in Russia and Ukraine. But when you're farther south, they considered this area to be worthy of vinicultural area. And of course, Nicholas II saw that, and so they were making a lot of fortified wines. And when I say that, they were making sherries. But if you ever want to check out, the history of Massandra, they had wines going back to the 1700s and 1800s. A lot of those wines they auctioned off to Sotheby's, and to this day, one of the most famous wines from the 17th century was auctioned off at one of the highest prices, close to $100,000 for a bottle of wine in London. And very few of those wines ever left. Of course, we're talking about the Tsar's collection. Of course, they're worthy of not only a piece of history, but the wines are still good. But we broke this out because it's an interesting wine. We call this a dessert wine. So for anybody that really doesn't, they're always looking and they say, do you have anything, a red wine that's sweet? Because I know I've had some people that don't like dry wines. And, if you've ever wanted to try a sweet wine that has some interesting character, and of course, you can drink this after dinner with dessert. So you can have chocolate, because the first time I tasted this wine and I smell this wine, I get a lot of like bitter chocolate, really interesting flavors of raspberry and cassis. And it's actually lovely. So when you drink this wine, it's definitely for after dinner for me personally. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is it's not a lightweight. It's also 16% alcohol. So it's a wine that you actually don't have to drink that much. If you drink a glass of this wine will actually be really, really well. You can just cork it back up. You can come back and taste this wine almost like a port. So if you've ever had ports or sherries, or any kind of Madeira or anything like that after dinner, these are the kind of wines that you really want to try. But this is tasting a piece of history, because again, we're talking about the Tsars of Russia. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, of course, the Bolsheviks came in. We all know our history. But what was beautiful about this area, which is Crimea, after World War II, when of course we defeated Germany, and you had the meeting Yalta, which was Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, and you also had Roosevelt, and they all met at Yalta in this area, which is called Crimea, as we showed right here. And guess what they were tasting? They were tasting this wine, which was from the Massandra collection, and that's a beautiful part of history. Of course, they were dividing up Europe. That was an unfortunate situation for everyone because the Soviet Union absorbed a lot of these countries. And we need to fight for independence to make our wines really, really great. But again, this is a Grape Explorer wanting to give you a little piece of history and a little piece of something that's really near and dear to me, Ukrainian wine, and also the wines from Crimea, the Massandra collection.